Well, it is noon, so let's go ahead and get started. My name is Christy Thompson. Thank you so much for coming out today to our webinar. We're going to talk about how to proactively stop hackers and avoid a data breach. So, just a few housekeeping items. We're going to keep everybody muted. Questions can be put in through the Q&A, through the chat. We're going to stop and try to take some. If we can't, we will answer them at the end or through email. So let me introduce you to our host. We've got Phillip Long. He is the CEO of Business Information Solutions as well as Cyber Fortress and Veritas Consulting Group. He's been in the IT industry for over 20 years. He has 600 plus clients from Gulfport, now all the way up to Montgomery, and he's the current owner of 5 businesses. He also holds some certifications, including Certified Information System Security Professional, that's a CISSP, as well as his CMMC designation. And then I'm going to pass it over to Phillip. Oh, we've got Jeff here too. Are you going to introduce Jeff?
Sure, I'll introduce Jeff. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you, Jeff and Christy, for being guests, and Christy for doing the work to put this on. We have Jeff Auerbach, and he is my channel account manager from a company called Huntress, and he's also a senior channel account manager, and he brings 12 years experience, and he works directly with guys like me, SMBs, and account managers. Lives in the Carolinas. We were just talking about how beautiful it is there for him. And then he's been a part of the Huntress team for over 3 years. So welcome, Jeff. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Phillip.
Yep. And I want to say, one of the reasons why I wanted to have Jeff on is, I was reading, about Hercules and the, being the myth when he went and he got the bull, right? And it's kind of caught between the horns of two bulls, that idiom. And I think a lot of business owners are in that predicament right now. They are in a place where it's very difficult for them because no business owner is looking to spend money on something that they don't see value in, and a lot of businesses don't understand technology to a great depth. And I thought that this particular product that Huntress makes is extremely good because it's very cost effective, because it actually goes on the offense for helping business owners stay secure. It's an inexpensive product and it really works. I wouldn't run a computer without it, and that's my personal opinion. Every one of our computers has it on it because of what it does. So Jeff, tell us a little bit about kind of where you see Huntress positioning itself.
Yeah, so Huntress is a managed EDR product. So Huntress is working on all servers, workstations. We have a team that reacts to any kind of incidents, and then we also have a team that's proactive, as you mentioned, Phillip, that is combing the internet, looking in the dark places where you shouldn't go, and looking for that tradecraft of bad folks, so that we can proactively build our defenses, so that when the bad stuff comes to your door, we already know about it, we're prepared, and we're able to combat it.
Yeah, for sure. And kind of to go on, like what I've been in this industry a long time, and as the term managed service provider and, managed security service provider, MSSP, have come about, I really see there's a lot of buzzwords that, shops will use, IT providers will use, but they're really not delivering the goods. You know what I mean? They're saying they're doing it, but they're not actually proving it to the client. And if you guys will send me an email or whatever, remind me, I'd love to send you out. I wrote a blog. It's going to be out in our newsletter, and I really put some thought into it, kind of going along with that, being caught between the horns, because either option's bad. One option is you don't do enough and you get you get somehow compromised, or the other option is clients feel like sometimes they're doing too much or they're spending too much, and which is really rarely the case whenever if you look at any of the compliance things. But one of the things that I want to touch on here is a good defense is the best offense, and some of these stats here, 95% of things that happen are from human error and likely preventable. It's usually, the end user, one of our employees is clicking on something or doing something, most of the time inadvertently, and getting clipped. And then 70% of breaches start at the endpoint. That would be a workstation, a laptop, a mobile phone, something like that. And then 277 is the average days to find and contain a breach. So the bad actors, and I want you to walk me through that, because I'm going to show you on the next slide. I want you to take this, Jeff, and kind of walk through how the bad actors are doing. But that 277 days before you basically kick the bad guys off of your network, and they're stealing and doing all the things and exploiting all of your data. And then speak to this slide about how they're doing it.
Yeah, so some of it is really just that shotgun approach. It's a spray attack, and they're just spraying out. Email is probably the highest, let's say the largest vehicle to gain access to systems. So think of a spray attack of spam, of phishing emails. I got one today. In my mailbox like 10 minutes before I joined today. Your Apple ID password has been reset.
Yep.
Man, I didn't reset that. I should go look at that. Oh, but wait a minute. I don't use that mail. Like, I don't use my work email for my Apple ID. So is that real? No. Do I hover over it? Do I scope it out before I just click on it and be like, what is this? Yeah. Or man, just delete it, right? Just get it out. You don't use an Apple ID in that mail account, just delete it. If it's important, it'll send it to you again, or reach out, right? If it's a business related email, reach out to those people and say, hey, did you send me this? No, I don't know what you're talking about. Oh, well, let's look into that. Right? So, so a lot of it is spray. Reconnaissance is a great term. How many folks have posted on LinkedIn, hey, I just took a new position at company X? Man, just hold on tight. You're about to get sprayed. You're about to get spammed. And folks will, sometimes their response is, well, how do they know what my email is? How many combinations of emails can there be, right?
Yeah.
You just pick like 18 different combinations and they spray attack that, right? So that's some targeted. A lot of it's shotgun. And then you get an email, right? You get an email that says, hey, re-authenticate to your Outlook. Oh, well, of course I need to. I'm new here. I don't want to call IT. I don't even know who IT is. They just click on it.
Yep.
It doesn't do anything immediately, right? It's just like you see like a flash or nothing happens and you just go about your day. Everything's still working. Just continue on with my day. I'm not going to tell anybody I didn't do anything wrong. Next thing you know, there's been persistence created, right? There's some stuff in the registry. There's some stuff buried in deep into your system that you don't even know exists. And it's just in there gathering data. It's just they're gathering data, doing that discovery, and sending data back to wherever that malware that you inadvertently took on. It's just sending data back. It's just reporting back and calling home.
Yep.
And then they wait a certain period of time. We just had Memorial Day, right? Everyone was off on Monday. It's a great time if you're a threat actor because you got Saturday, Sunday. You usually got half a day Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and all on Monday to do whatever stuff you want to do. Right, so they execute. They know our holidays. They know when we're off, right? July 4th is coming, all that stuff. And then they execute. You come in after the holiday and all your stuff's encrypted. Stuff's missing. Damage, right? Damage.
Or worse, they just got that foothold there, and they're going to, they're going to steady, look through all of the data.
Mm-hmm.
I did a security audit with a client, and I went through the report of findings this past week. And one of the things I do is run a checker, a file checker that checks for any personal identifiable information that's on their
Mm-hmm.
network. And they're like, "Oh yeah, we never save that. We delete it." And there was literally 29,000 records
I had
on their
PII in
system
it.
that had PI. Had mainly social security numbers, some driver's license, a few credit cards. Mainly social security numbers is what it was, mainly found. But it had their address, their social, their date of birth, phone numbers, had everything, including their social on it. And they thought they had nothing on their network. But that's what they're doing during that discovery, is they're
Mm-hmm.
actually mining that data, and then they're looking through all of like your emails. Business email compromise is another big thing where they'll look through, and you think about, wow, I can go back and look 5, 6, 10 years in my email, and there's attachments, all
Mm.
kinds of stuff that's in those attachments that's in there. So that's really, what it's about. And of course, once usually when they're finished, they extort you, and they ransom you. Basically, they'll
Yeah.
encrypt everything, and they'll say, "All right, if you want me to unlock your files, pay me." And you say, "No, that's cool. I got a good backup. I can restore quickly." They're like, "Well, cool. I'm going to extort you because those 29,000 records, I'm putting them out on the dark web, and I'm going to tell everybody that you lost them." And so
Mm-hmm.
you're going to take the reputation hit. So that's really what it's about. And again, another thing that is like, it worries me to a degree, is like statistically, I think Statistica, the company, put out a report, and in 2022, cybercrime cost the world like 8.4 trillion, and they're saying in 2027 it's going to be like 24.8
Just getting
trillion,
bigger.
25 trillion dollars. That is just huge. I mean, that's larger than any world economy,
It's pretty big, right?
and
Like,
it's
and
growing. And so
mm-hmm.
that's why I think, products like this I want to introduce to my clients, because um, another thing that I say all the time is like, and I work a lot in people that are supposed to have their stuff compliant in the medical space. I've been doing HIPAA risk assessments for probably 15 years, ever since high tech came out. And, but it never had teeth. I don't think they've ever actually proactively went to a doctor's office and looked to see that they had it in place. I think they've done a few desk audits where basically you pass some paper around, but they've never actually come out unless there's a breach.
Mm-hmm.
So, and what people don't realize is that they sign that attestation. They basically say, yeah, all these things we've done. Their hands on the Bible. They signed all these things we've done, and then that's where the trouble happens. Is then they send out in the medical space, it's a civil rights attorney that you're dealing with, because that's that's
Yeah, it's
a
a
manage
violation.
yeah, of civil rights, because they've lost your medical record. So the first order of business, do no harm. And I think from everybody's mindful of money right now. I don't think anybody's just up and too happy about the economy right now that I know of. Everybody's got a little pressure on them from just, even if it's just from an inflationary standpoint. So this is a great product that goes a long ways in beating the bad guys. And I will make a note just so people kind of understand, it's really just an agent. It's a piece of software that you install on a server or on a laptop or a computer. It's just a little piece of software that you don't really even know. It's got a small footprint. It's not using a lot of resources, but it is literally tracking everything that happens on that computer. And it kind of leads me to this next slide and talking about artificial intelligence. It's such a huge buzzword, right? It's such a thing. And this product uses artificial intelligence for good. And then I want to talk a little bit how the bad guys are using artificial intelligence for bad. So
Yeah, go ahead, Philip.
yeah, I don't know if you want to weigh in a little bit, just how, like basically the good guys have tracked, and I don't want to go deep in the weeds. I don't want to go into
Yeah,
a
I can
full
talk about it
malware
for a
attack.
minute.
Yeah, but I want to go about more about just how, you know, basically laying traps. It lays traps that if something happens in with that file or things like that, it alerts well before the actual execution of something really bad takes place.
Yeah, so we're using some bit of AI, and we're using a lot of automation,
Yeah.
and the nice thing about Huntress is that it's all powered and it's all backed by a human-led security operations center and a threat ops team. So yes, we use a lot of the technology of today, but at the end of the day, nothing leaves our gates unless there's a human set of eyes on it. So you have that check and balance system of great technology that's current and up to date, and then you also have the best in the industry reviewing anything that's pulled through. Now, when we talk about AI used for bad, it really like changes the game, right? Think
uh,
about if I'm in China, West Africa, Russia, and I'm trying to craft a phishing email pre-AI, let's say something GPT or whatever it's called now. Um, Before that, right, I had to like try and craft it. It would be pretty close, but it'd be some broken English.
yep.
Now I can just go to Chat GPT and say, hey, create me an email to that does X, Y, or Z. And it'll do it. And it'll look exactly. There's no broken English, no language barrier, right? Chat GPT knows, oh, you're Russian, or you're in China, you're this, that. And it creates the email, and it's just a copy and paste. So like some of the things of old where it's just when I open that, I'll just see it. Like they're just gonna have some stuff that just doesn't gonna sound
Yeah.
right. All that's solved, right? AI, chat, whatever kind of AI platform you're using.
Yeah. I did some research recently. There's a have you read anything on worm GTP?
I have not yet.
I don't know about, do not go out there and download it. I'm gonna tell you right now, don't do it. But it's out there, it's available. It's interesting in that, like say Chat GTP and all the other GTPs that are publicly used, they are like limiting, like you can't ask it how to make a atomic bomb, or that's an overstatement, but how to do something. It'll hold back information from
Mm-hmm.
you that could be used for bad. And it also puts dates where it won't let you have the latest, greatest information, because, if you had the power of artificial intelligence, even for stock trading and things like that, if you could use the power of, artificial intelligence to work on things, if you had real up to the minute data, that could be pretty scary. But it can, you talked about, building emails, but this thing will give you the code. If you want to have it write malicious code for you, it'll write malicious code. But it also, from what I understand about it, it keeps everything that, like on the devices that you put it on and stuff, that it's actually
Mm-hmm.
mining
Yeah, it's mining in the
mining off.
background.
Yes. So you don't want to install it and run it, but the bad guys are definitely using it to write bad code, to of course make great graphics, make great phishing emails, even
Mm-hmm.
understand about a particular market and things like that, where they can have some deep intelligence, so that they know more and more and more. Because you think culturally, that was probably a huge challenge, because of, culturally, they don't understand us. But Chat GTP will flat because you can ask it, I don't know, I play around with it a lot, and write me a marketing plan the way Grant Cardone would do it. Boom,
Mm-hmm.
it'll write it just like Grant Cardone is doing, because it searched the web for all the stuff that he's doing. So very, very, very interesting, and yet very powerful, and in the hands of evil, could really, it's working. I mean, I believe that's why we're going to see 3, 4, 500% increase, which is phenomenal to me, and phenomenal in a bad way, in a scary way. And for a guy who's supposed to protect, my clients, it worries me because, I always say it ain't a matter of if, it's a matter of when,
Mm-hmm.
but how
Yeah,
bad and how bad.
yeah, and there's always ways around, right? Everyone has the same Skynet fear, right? We all have seen the movies, right? We all watched Terminator 1, 2, and 3, 4,
Yeah,
however many they came out with. We all know about Skynet, right? So when you think AI, you think Skynet. Now, a good acceptable use policy that I'm sure Philip and his team can help you write, um, as to how AI or one of these platforms can and could be used within your network is necessary, right? I'm sure you have some web filters that can help with block and tackling,
yep.
and that's why having a good partner to help you navigate this stuff is important.
That's right. Yeah, there's no but again, you got to start thinking outside the box a little bit, and that's what kind of frustrates me in some areas of this industry and what I see on a day-to-day basis. And I'll tell you, one of the biggest challenges for me, I always tell my guys, is like, I'm not fighting a World War I battle. World War I, they were basically, if you really study trench warfare, it's pretty fascinating. And basically how well that we even were able to win that, it was pretty amazing because of how well their trenches were. We were in a mud hole and they had their trenches all built out, and they kept trying to flank each other, so they just went on and on and on for miles. But they would gain a trench and then lose a trench. And what I'm trying to say in that is that, like, say multi-factor authentication, say getting it to where people are actually changing their passwords. Well, the trouble with it is that you get it all in place. It's working. Every account has multi-factor on it. Everyone's changing their password. It's complex. It's changing every 90 days. Well, then the problem is you use that system. Somebody sets up a new user. So you have to have a tool that watches the environment to alert you whenever you basically get out of secure position, if you will. And that's something that I've really been working a lot on, is trying to build systems in place that watch my team, watch my clients' team, so they're not, when they make changes. Uh, very interesting time right now. Very challenging time, to be quite honest with you, because if you leave the door open, you're liable to have a visitor. So I want to talk about just
100%.
what we talked about earlier. We're talking about endpoint securities. We're only going to mainly talk about two of these for the sake of time, but we may just brush through them quick. But endpoints where the action's at. That's where most of the risk is. And they can hack a firewall, they can do things like that, but by far and away, they can send an email and they can get somebody to click on something. And if you don't have a good endpoint detection, um, and another thing, which you were talking about, how the human element part of the way Huntress does it is awesome, because there's check and balance. They're using the technology to scan for anomalies and pick up that stuff. Then a human looks at it, which will definitely limit your false positives for sure. And then it also, another thing that I think is really neat is that it can isolate that machine. It can disconnect that machine from the network so that they can no longer have access to it. They can't steal data off of it automatically 24 hours a day. And you talked about how over the weekend, read a report, all the breaches and all this bad stuff that's going on are happening basically on holidays or on weekends, after 5 on Friday and before 8 a.m. on Monday. That's just the game that's getting played. And this is 24/7, 365. And I'll throw another benefit. Again, why I wanted you on is because for a business owner, the cost of this, having it so when you fill out that cyber liability form, you'll reduce your cyber liability costs, the insurance cost, enough to pay for this, and you won't get breached. Wow, isn't that awesome? And
It's a win in both places.
yeah, for sure. But because you have a true endpoint detection and response. EDR solution is what it's called. So really pretty cool. So let's jump in. We'll talk a little bit about this first one here and this fifth one here, but identifying and understanding your entry points, because things have changed as far as
Yeah.
entry points.
Yeah, 100%. So, there's think of any way that they can get into your network. Email, again, I feel like email is the highest volume because you don't need physical access, right? I don't need to be where you are. I don't need to know where you are. I'm just going to send out a campaign of bad stuff and see who clicks on it, right? If I send How hard is it for me to send 100,000 emails? I can create a bot that'll send that out and leak it out through a 24-hour period and never get flagged. And then if I get 100 people to come back to me, and that first email, right? What does that first email look like? Hey, I'm reaching out about XYZ, and there's nothing in it to block. It's just text. And then you
Yep.
start responding, and the next thing you know, you get a link and you get hit. Understanding your entry points and making sure that you have something in place and that you don't have a hole, right? Just like a house, right? Walking around. Some people say, well, yeah, I lock my doors, but yeah, I leave the windows open at night. It's the summer. I love fresh air.
Yeah,
It's
we don't
leaving
do
a
that. We
hole.
don't do that down here because it's too damn hot. But
It's just too hot, right? But like,
but yeah, I get it.
hey, I
Yeah.
have some pets, right? My pets, my daughter has a couple cats, right? And we leave the screen and porch open for them throughout the day. Now, if I leave, my daughter's gonna be like, "But Dad, you gotta leave the door open for the cats." Yeah, I'm leaving it open for the cats, but I'm leaving it open for anyone else that might want to drive by and like walk in the back of my house and be like, "Oh, very nice, door's open. I don't need to do anything. I just walk
Yeah.
right in and like make myself a meal and steal whatever I want."
Yeah. You know what? Another thing that just what you said that about leaving the door open, those 29,000 files that I just talked about that were laying on that server, they were in a public share where everybody in the company had access to them. Again, knowing where your stuff is and with bring your own device and with having people work
All
from
that.
home, we have so many more points. But the good news is that again, I'm just I think very like systematically. The good news is on this is that most companies have gone to Microsoft 365. And if you employ that, you set that up right, you have a good endpoint detection and response solution, you can make it to where you can be secure because I
Mm-hmm.
can geo filter out where people in Russia can't
Yeah.
even try to log into your account. And the tools are all there. But again, with all these IT guys using the same buzzword, they think everything's created equal, but really you got to know how to set that up and you got to have that systematic approach in order to, that'll be our next thing is talking about layering up your endpoint defenses. But identifying where's your data, who has access to it, all of that kind of stuff. What are your entry points? Even setting up your wireless correctly so that your public Wi-Fi is on a separate subnet than
Mm-hmm.
your business network. And I don't even give my employees with their phones access to the business network because think about it,
Mm-hmm.
there ain't no telling what people are doing on their phones.
There's two
And
things, right? Do you need to give access to the internal network for people's phones?
yep.
And the days of a guest network, do you really need a guest network?
Yeah. Well,
Right?
sometimes cell coverage, if they have terrible cell
Sure,
coverage, but
sure.
yeah, data's free pretty much nowadays on everybody's package.
Right. And right, I sat in a client's office waiting to meet with the POC. And somebody walks into the front desk and says, to the front desk and says, "Hey, do you have Wi-Fi?" And she's like, "Yeah, here you go. Here's the password." Now I knew the difference, and she gave out their internal Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Just
And
just some
that's
random
just
folks that just walked
voodoo.
in the door, right? And
Yeah.
who
Yeah.
nobody was
That's
the wiser.
I like what you talked about earlier, like your policies. Yeah, they call that governance nowadays. That's your documents. But security really is physical, it's documentation, and it's cyber, and you got to have all three working together. And you got to have your staff knowing what they can and can't do. And even
Mm-hmm.
when they do something, if you have an environment that's so like, oh my God, they're going to beat the heck out of you because you clicked on something. Hey, I'd rather them tell me right away so I can go
Mm-hmm.
investigate to make sure we're not in a bad spot. But if you have an environment that doesn't have a conversation, this is something I've been talking a lot about too, about teams. All of my success in my life has come from the team I hang out with, and from personally in turn into the business is in building and working with people and helping us achieve our goals, and then externally having good money managers, good guys that know real estate, all the things that I'm in. I own several companies, and really, I'll be honest with you, it ain't because of me. It's usually because the team I got on board, and trying to having that thought of, and then so I got three thoughts going now. I mean, I'm in jeopardy right now, so I better clean some of this up. All right, one thought is walking around the house. You could have an armed guard by every window at your house, every door and every window, but that's really not cost effective. And a lot of times, as IT providers, we want to do a penetration test on somebody and spend 10 grand and they don't even have a firewall. I see that happen all the time. And I'm like,
It's a
and the
buzzword. Pen
client,
test's a buzzword.
yes, it's these buzzwords that the people get hooked on. But anyway, so that was one of them I knocked off there that I think about a lot. And then, oh, and the team, like what I would really encourage people to do is like internally employ their marketing people uh to help inform people with the cyber threats.
Mm-hmm.
Have a little fun with it, but you got to have everybody communicating. But when I do talks and stuff, it's sometimes the owner, a lot of times the owner, it'll be an IT guy and maybe the financial person that'll come, but the operations people usually never come, the marketing people never come. It's just,
Yeah,
it's like segmented
they
and
don't think,
siloed.
right? Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then outside, um, here's where we're coming to, and y'all can write this down and check me. Uh, I believe that we're coming to a lot of that money from what I'm reading. Some of that, the 24 trillion is going to happen because of litigation. And what we need to be doing is really engaging the business owner, the IT people, the cyber liability insurance people, because that's transferring risk by giving away money, and an attorney who would be able to say, yes, Mr. Long, I can stand up in court and say, that you're not negligent, that you've practiced due diligence. I mean, you've done your due diligence and you practice due care. You need to have that team of people all kind of on the same page. And that's not really that hard to do, but yet people never do it.
Mm-hmm.
So the next thing we'll talk about here is I tell you what, let's pop through a couple of those other ones real quick. I'm gonna be mindful of everybody's time. But again, developing a proactive patch strategy on your systems. Patches nowadays, probably 70, 80% of them are security related. That's on your firewall, that's on your desktops, that's on your server, that's on your website, that's on your camera
Anything that has
system.
a plug, right,
Yeah, on your
has to
camera.
stay up to date.
Yep. And then I wanted to really talk about multi-factor authentication and how, again, this is something that comes in Microsoft 365 for free. And it's like pulling teeth to get people to do it. And then least privilege is simply don't, like that file share that had all those files in it available to everyone in the office. Don't know about what you're sharing. And least privilege. Don't give them more privilege. Don't make everybody a damn admin. And then, we'll
Yeah,
talk
rolling
about
back,
layer.
Philip, before you get too far, like MFA, having MFA, right? When I think of MFA, I think of the evolution of how, right, when you drive, right? Think of this is calling me old, but I'm okay with that. Think of the way like car safety has gone.
Yeah. I used to lay up in the back windshield on a
Right?
trip.
Like I used to sit in the back of my mom's station wagon and just roll around with my friends, right? Because that's what you did. I don't need to sit up front. Everything's boring up front, right? Seatbelts weren't even a thing.
Yeah.
Seatbelts weren't even a thing for how long the cars existed. And then you rolled out seatbelts, and everyone was like, I'm not wearing this thing. This thing's silly. And that was just a lap belt. That's not even a shoulder belt.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it was analog brakes, and then it was airbags, and then it was this or that. Now it's assisted driving. Now it's lane assist
Yeah.
that can keep me in my lane.
Yeah.
And when we buy a car, we're not like, nah, turn that stuff off. I don't need that stuff. If everything could just roll out and you could just plug it into your cars now, I'm sure people would go for it. But when we think of like, I don't need MFA, nobody's coming after me.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who you are. It's a spray attack, right?
Yeah.
Having that on is like just having airbags in your car. Having this stuff that you know that's just is going to help reduce the risk that when if bad things come to your door, that you're safe.
Yeah. I guarantee you this year I've been on email, getting stolen. Never once with somebody who had MFA. Not ever once have I ever seen
Mm-hmm.
it. But this year I bet I've dealt with it 15 times. Um, and some people won't even turn it on after they get hacked. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just I don't get it. But you're right. Yeah. Um,
They'll
then we'll
spend
talk.
an hour a day on like social media, but they won't like put MFA on for a once a month prompt on their phone.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And but prioritize real-time endpoint insights and visibility. That's basically having something looking at your stuff 24/7, 365. Implement an EDR solution. That's what we're talking about here. Endpoint detection and response. And it's so different than going and grabbing a copy of McAfee that came on your computer because it doesn't respond to anybody. It doesn't tell anybody it had a problem. It might pop up a box, and what I've seen people do is like, well, I just allow whatever it pops up because one time I said not allow, and then I couldn't work. You don't
Mm-hmm.
want it. You don't want that end user making decisions for you. And then talking about that, bring your own device policy, empower your people with cybersecurity training. Again, and it doesn't have to be fancy. Hell, you could Google something. We sell packages because they're so cheap now, and they'll do phishing attacks and everything. But still, you could do it for free. Put it part of all your meetings, and then of course do a regular risk assessment and audits. But we'll jump in and we'll talk about layering up your defenses because this is something that I think is really important um, when it gets down to. I had a guy one time, and he was from wherever he was from, and I'm not picking on anybody, but he said "Holy schmoly," and he bowled. He was that was like what they did. Is he was I think it was like Wisconsin or something. Maybe they bowl a lot in Wisconsin, but he was on the Pro Bowlers tour. Cool guy, ran a school. And this is going way back. But he told me, he said, because we sold him a firewall and then also antivirus on the computer. And he was complaining, why didn't they have one product that could solve every problem? So why, if I asked you why can't they have one product that solves every problem?
Yeah, I mean that's just not realistic, right? There's you know what my least favorite term in the industry right now, Philip, is overlap. Well, this is overlap. Well, this is overlap. Like we can't have this. This is just overlap with our other products. If you don't have some overlap, then you have gaps,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So you need multiple things doing multiple things, right? You need, and that sounds redundant, right? But you need multiple tools doing multiple things so that you are looking in different places. And then there's a little bit of overlap so that there's not gaps in your environment, right? Without overlap, there are gaps and holes, little bits of overlap that are cost effective are good and important. So having one tool to do them all, they're probably not experts at all the little areas, right? So having multiple things where they're really good at their space,
Yep.
man, I'll go for that, right? My son plays baseball. He's really good at shortstop. I move him over to first base. He's like, I can do it. Not really good at it though.
Yeah.
Can you catch? I mean, I can get back there, but I'm not really good at it. Like, I'm not going to do well at it. Okay, well, let's get someone who's really good to do that, and you keep you where you are, right? Let the groups that are really good in their spaces stay there, and then find multiple things so that you have aces in each spot.
Yep. That's part of building out the team is the way I think exactly. And I like the thing, you wouldn't go to, if you had a brain aneurysm, you probably wouldn't go to your podiatrist. Now he may know a little bit about the brain, he had to get through medical school or whatever, but I
Yeah,
don't think you want him cutting your head open to relieve some pressure. Uh,
yeah.
and and also it's just the philosophy of a company, or it's how they go about a breach. I've always wanted a diverse defense in depth strategy. I like, we use Barracuda on our emails. We use Sonic Wall for firewalls with the filtering engaged. We use a patch system, and we're using some of the Microsoft Intune and some of the products that they provide. We're using Sentinel One as a endpoint detection and response, more like antivirus, and then we use Huntress. I even have a SIM and SOC that lives on all my devices, where I have a team that is dedicated to watching. And I'll have to knock on some wood, but I've not had any issues. And the reality is, if I had an issue, and I got MFA enabled, all that, and if I had an issue, I'd take a haircut. You know what I mean? I would take a haircut in business, and much less just the downtime and all the other stuff. So you really have to get that layer up. Now, here's the good news, right? The good news is that oftentimes, almost always, I will say always, and that's a very big statement. The tools that we have security built into them, but you got to have somebody who can manage them and turn them on and manage them. I'll give you an example. Even like if you're say you're doing QuickBooks Online, it's got multi-factor authentication. You know, the Microsoft products, you can go in there and geo filter. You can put conditional access rules so that impossibilities where, like, I can't log in from an IP address that's located in Alabama and in New York 2 hours later. There's so many things that are there and ready to be turned on and deployed that cost $0. Multi-factor authentication, $0. Um, even the
It just
Microsoft,
reduces that
yeah,
funnel, right? It just reduces that funnel
yep,
of how much risk that you have. But like you said, there are still ways, right? MFA, baseline, have to have it, right? You would not even think of driving anywhere without a seatbelt on.
yeah,
You still need other stuff, right? So you still need a SOC looking because you do all those conditional access policies, and the threat actor figures out a way around them.
yep,
If they want your stuff, they're gonna
they
get
can
it.
get it.
They're gonna
Well,
come to you, and they're going to fight with you, right? Do you want to fight alone? Do you want a best in class group that can fight with you and stand next to you and do the work when you're not around?
yeah,
So it's really important to make sure you have as much in place that hardens your environment. And I use that term because it's easy to visualize, right? You can't have it too hard because then you can't function,
yep,
but you need to have it hard enough that you've taken the weak spots, the soft spaces out of your environment so that you're not leaving yourself at risk, prone to just being hit. And,
yeah,
and and you'll do the most you can. Do the most you can as effectively as you can within budget. And then rest assured that you've done everything. Partner with a good group that's going to help configure it for you, because the best box of tools is great, but if it's that best box of tools is sitting in the garage not getting used, it's not really helping, right? You're still running the same way. So
Yeah, I see that so often. How familiar are you for the Center for Internet Security, CIS? You,
a little bit.
yeah, I've really spent a lot of time in that particular and for the audience, it's basically it's an entity been around a long time, nonprofit organization that studies cybersecurity, and they put out the CIS 18, and that's 18 controls or 18 things that you need to do on your network. Well, what I love about it is that these guys, again, they have a huge budget. They've been around a long time, and they're looking at recent cyber uh, breaches, and they're putting things in place based off of what they're seeing, because the market is shifting. The threat actors are changing their tactics, so they change in each year. Matter of fact, it used to be the CIS 20. They had 20 controls, and now they've limited it to 18 just this past year. I think they've changed 8 years over the past 20 something years. They've changed 8 times. But they have a what is called IG1, and they call it basically essential cybersecurity. And I like meeting with my client on those core things, because if you have those core essentials in place, statistically, you've reduced your risk by over 85%. And if you look at it from a standpoint, I do other things. I do HIPAA. HIPAA, don't quote me because I'll have it wrong, but they've got 70 or 80 controls. CMMC, the new one with the Department of Defense, has 115 controls. And so when we look at just bang for the buck or whatever, hey, you know what? We're going to put in these limited controls that are very common and not going to cost a lot. We're going to reduce your risk by 85%. Well, think from going to 18 controls to 115 controls, that's a big difference. So by putting all these others in, I'm still never reaching zero on my risk. So let's say I got to 98%. To gain 13%, I've got to do all of this work. So again, I try to think very logically, especially for clients, because they're looking for return on investment. And even if they are held to compliance and they have done attestation, and they're not going to be in trouble unless they have a breach. So I'm trying to really follow that particular roadmap to show people. And again, it ain't some slick IT guy trying to sell you a bunch of stuff. And I'm not trying to sell you control number 110 that's going to cost, $6,000 a year, that's going to reduce your risk by 2%. I'm really getting down and focusing on the things that are going to give the most impact for the dollar. Kind of going back to that, between the two horns there, having a partner who can not oversell you, but also not undersell you.
Yeah, I can't agree more. Having a framework like the CIS controls is great. At the minimum, you can get a plan. Listen, even if that plan is a 24-month plan,
Yep.
at least you've educated yourself on the controls, and you have something in place that works towards being compliant or abiding by as many of these as possible, so that if you're working with a third party and they say, what do you guys do for cybersecurity? Well, we're working towards abiding by all the or being compliant with CIS controls, and at least you've educated yourself and you have a knowledge around them. So as you're working, right, because no environment's static, no environment stays put for too long. So as someone's, you get asked, hey, can we do X? Can we do Y? Oh, well, I don't think so, because CIS control 10 says we shouldn't be doing that, right? Hey, I have clients come here all the time, and man, they just need the internet. They don't want a hotspot, blah blah blah. Well, yeah, I get that. I get it would be more convenient, but we need either a guest network that's locked down, or we just need to not have it and tell people that's our policy. And it's because of the CIS controls. And those that get it will be like, oh,
Yeah,
well,
that's right.
I don't understand why we don't do that, right? So at least educating yourself and having a plan, working with you to like develop that plan of compliance or abiding by it is important.
Yep. I don't know. Christy, I'm gonna get us out of here on time. So I
Hmm.
wanted to see if there was any questions from anyone.
Yes. The question was, what about Microsoft 365 endpoints?
You talking about, let's see, from a like using the tools in Microsoft 365? Because, in essence, Microsoft 365 is an endpoint, you know,
It's a
software, just
node.
like
It's
this would be. That's a node on the network. And so I'll take a quick crack and then you finish me up, Jeff. I mean, the with Microsoft 365, it is cumbersome. It is Microsoft. You know what I mean? They've never had a slick interface that's too slick. It is the industry standard, and but they have some very powerful tools that are in these packages that no one is even using. Not only tools for security, but I'll also say tools for productivity. They have plugins upon plugins that would make your life so much easier if you take 5 minutes to learn them. And same way it would be from a security. So, what's your thoughts on that, Jeff?
Yeah, so Microsoft 365, let's say on a productivity level, is huge, right? Like it is massive and so much easier to manage your business if it's in 365. But at the same side, as far as like a cyber risk, you're not the only one that knows that most people are using 365, right? So if I'm a threat actor, where am I going to go if I want to do harm? I'm going to go the place that I know most small medium businesses are using, right? Think of I could go to an apartment building that had 20 apartments, or I can go to an apartment building if I try to break into apartments, and I can go to one that has 1,000 apartments. I'm going
Yep.
to 1,000, right? Because at some point, someone's door is going to be unlocked, and I'm getting in. I'm breaking into an apartment just by doing the whole handle check. Oh, handle, 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 handle. Oh, this one's good. I'm in. All
Yep.
right, apartment 105. Let's go. We're in. Everyone runs upstairs, right? Or everyone meets down at floor one and goes in apartment 5. So yeah, 365 is a great productivity. Great for
Yep.
productivity, but it's also a big place. How do you harden that? How do you make sure you're being productive in a safe way? You configure it as best you can so that it doesn't impact your business, right? You can't. Uh, Conditional access policies are great, right? So um, you have to think of the conditional access policies as far as function. Do I want to reduce my acceptable access to North Carolina only? Well, yeah, that's great. Oh, well, we hired somebody in Massachusetts. Well, they can't get in. Well, we're going to have to flex that, right? We're going to have to soften that so it allows, right? So configuring that so that, configuring 365 properly needs an expert. Can't just
Yep.
jump in there and hope to be able to build that out on your
Yep.
own. It's just not going to work. And you're going to cause yourself more harm than good. As you said, do no harm. You're going to cause yourself more harm. Partner with somebody that just can jump in and know, oh, if I go to these 20 places, these are my 20 places to configure.
Yep. And what else, Christy? Any other questions?
Yes, we had one last one. Employees can still make an error even with endpoints. So, what training do you recommend?
I mean, I can jump in on this, Philip.
Yeah, go ahead.
So a good cadence of monthly education on the cyber side is really important, right? The term that I use, and it never gets old, is heightened awareness, right? Heightened awareness in terms of how you manage your internet use, how you manage your inboxes, whether it be personal or professional, having a heightened awareness and scrutinizing, just like when we started, right? Turning it right back to the beginning. If I looked at that email that I got today and been like, well, I didn't reset my Apple ID password, I better go it's going to give me a button that says, if you didn't do this, click here. Now, who's going to click there? Most people might click there, right? But if I had a good cyber education policy and I was getting educated on a monthly basis, watching my 5-minute video, whether it be fun or not, and being diligent about the things that I do in terms of internet searching and email use, I'll make less errors, right? My chances of making an error are reduced, right? I'll remember when I see that. I remember last month when they sent me a thing and said, don't click on emails that I should just delete those, or I should report that somehow,
Yeah. I
right?
tell you, another part that I think is often overlooked is that like doing like I do, I love meeting with my clients doing technology business reviews because I am bringing some things to the forefront that are happening that are happening right then and then. Again, that's just that heightened awareness, and it's really, I think life's about routine, it's about rhythm. And once if your focus is on it and your rhythm is doing that, it's like going to the gym. The first time you go to the gym, it probably wasn't the greatest, but if you keep going, you're going to start seeing results and you're going to start living a healthier lifestyle. So I think that's really important. And if you want to find out more about any of the stuff that we talked about today, or even demo this product, the cool thing about this product is we can demo it. Jeff's made me a deal where I can throw it on a machine for, I don't know, a month, a week, something, and I'll twist his arm, and you can see what the hell's going on, and you can see the things that it's investigating, and you can really get a huge level, because I mean, again, you can set it to where it can disconnect the whole network from the every computer because of an event if it's got lateral movement. And we won't get into all the technical stuff, but uh, or just that one machine, so that you could literally, you're on vacation, something happens to your machine, it's protected because you got eyes on from a team of security experts. Really, really, really cool. I like the story, and I won't go all the way into it because I met the owner. Whenever they started this company, I met him at he used to work for, which government
One
group
of
did
those
he work?
3-letter agencies.
Yeah, that's right. I guess, and y'all don't even like to talk about it. Is that by design?
Yeah, I mean, we don't like we one of those 3-letter agencies, right? Doing not defense, right? Doing different kind of security work, and they realized that they can after they get out of the military, that they can take what they've learned and use it for good, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Instead of offensive, or they can use it on a defensive
Yeah.
side.
But again, he was a phenom for sure. He was not the average cat, but he's a pretty cool guy. I met him personally, and again, I've just seen the product grow and get just really, 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 it's so cost effective. But anyway, for those of you guys that are on the call, I want to get you out of here on time. Jeff's got work to do, and but I'll give you a free business risk assessment where I want to look at your the compliance controls that you have in place, uh, not the crazy ones, but just what I will call essential cyber hygiene. Then I want to look at your Microsoft 365 security review, and I want to take a look at your cyber liability insurance policy, and then look at some type of like disaster recovery plan. Like most people think, well, I got my files backed up, and they don't realize that really to have their system back up and running, it could be a week. And those are things that I think are just some core things. And I'll even throw in there, I'll drop agents on your machines and let you drive this product around and show you what's really going on your network. I've demoed it a few times with some clients, and we found some very interesting stuff that they didn't realize that was happening. So in order to take us up on that, you can simply respond to security at Ask BIS. You can call that phone number. A lot of people, you can text me, you can call me, or whatever, and we'd be happy to hook you up on that. So, Jeff, thank you so much. Thank you, Christy, and thank everybody for coming out. And this will be available on recording. And if you ever have questions or things that you're interested about, anybody knows me, I'm not an arm twister. I love to help people. And this is something that is really, I think, so important for the longevity of a company. I mean, you don't want to have a breach, because it's going to get expensive and it's going to get harder if you do have a
It's gonna
breach.
hurt.
First order business, do no harm. So thank you guys, and we'll talk soon.